Hello, everyone. This is Ernie Humphrey, the CEO of 360 Thought Leadership Consulting. I'm happy to welcome everyone to our session featuring our friends at OnPlan. They are going to share with us their amazing solution. And so, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead without further ado. I'll hand the floor over to Charlie, who's going to drive you through some demo and tell us what OnPlan is all about. Charlie, take it away.
Hey everyone, super excited to be here. Just a little bit about me before we get started. My name is Charlie Liu. I am the head of solution on plan. And essentially I've been in this space for a little bit over a decade. So at OnPlan, my whole responsibilities includes educating the market in terms of the best practices, in terms of our software. And I've worked across multiple different positions in my career as well, between professional services, sales, pre-sales, product as well. And I'm super excited to give you guys a demonstration of the product today, as well as giving everyone a little bit oversight of what OnPlan, who we are as well. So for today's session, I'm going to do some quick introductions in terms of who OnPlan is, what our DNA, kind of the high value props that we have. And then afterwards, we're going to quickly jump into the more interesting stuff, which is the product side of things. And then we'll finish it off with some Q&A from Ernie, as well as the guests that we have here. So who are we? Who is OnPlan, right? So we've been in the business for a couple of years now, right? So we are spread across the world. We have employees across Miami, Boston, Toronto. We also have a hub in Ukraine and India as well. At this point, we have around 60 employees, and we have a little over 150 customers as well, right? We started primarily in the SaaS space, but then we started moving into professional services as well as other segments as well, right? So we work with all different industries as well. There's no one clear specific one, but our definitely our bread and butter is in the SaaS and PS side of these industries. We are the third gen. What that really means is we have access to a brand new tech stack that I'll get into a little bit later to the product side that allows us to rapidly deploy solutions as if you were just shopping for an app on your Google Play Store, Apple Play Store, or as if you're just buying something in the e-commerce. So rapidly deploy apps for different clients. But at the same time, we give you that flexibility because we are still connected and working with spreadsheets. At the same time, we have a big data database that really powers everything that we have, allows you to scale and to manage the data that we see in the Office of Finance today. And lastly, we are venture backed, right? So we have some big players supporting us as well. So RepPoint Capital, Value Stream, Precursor, and lately Born Capital as well. So we do have clients across industries. Like I said, here are just some of the big names that we have. So we have Mind Research. They are a not-for-profit. We have Redbubble. I believe it is one of our largest customer. They are a marketplace for independent artists. They are in Australia, and we're helping them across multiple different entities with the forecasting, with the consolidations. We have Babylist, which is an online registration for expecting parents. Very cool business, right? And then lastly, we have InPartner, which is a SaaS solution for partner management, right? So some of the value props that we help these customers or in these industries, right? We unify the different systems they have. So OnPlan is your source of truth, right? We also get at the same time make it easier for you to forecast, so you have the transparency, so that you can look at your BVAs and get actionable insights, right? And because we make it super easy for you to do your forecasting, your budgeting, we really encourage you to do rolling forecasts, what if scenarios, right? So you can think about where the business is going, especially this day and time with the different landscape of the markets, right? There's a lot of changes happening very fast. You want to be thinking about what that looks like, what is best scenario, what is the worst case scenario. At the same time, by having OnPlan, we really try to push for a distributive planning process. So we want to get all the inputs right from different departments, have them actually work with us in OnPlan. We don't want you collecting spreadsheets. We want to make it super easy so that everyone can contribute to your forecast. And lastly, we make it easier for you to do reporting, forecasting, right? So a lot of the customers that are doing for them cash flow runway, we make it super easy for them to plan their cash runways as well. So the exciting part, let me switch gears a little bit and get into the product a little bit, right? So in terms of the product demonstration, we're going to go through some dashboards. In terms of the reporting dashboard side, we're going to get into some planning apps like I talked about earlier in terms of how do we rapidly deploy these apps for the customers. We'll get into some scenario management. And then lastly, we'll just get into the back end, the actual database. How do we build something a little bit as well? So for anyone in the audience that's a little bit geekier that wants to see how we actually build something on, but not just the shiny dashboards apps as well, we'll show you what that looks like as well, which should be exciting for everyone. So to get started, the first thing in OnPlan that I'm showing right here, this is the landing page. As an end user, the first thing you're going to see once you land in OnPlan is your dashboard. So you're going to have access to your KPIs, your visualizations, any important benchmark reports. We're going to have all that at your fingertips. At the same time, this is also all interactive. So if you want to filter out certain data points and then start zooming to the data you care about, you can do that as well, right? So for example, right here, my new logo is kind of overshadowing everything else. I can filter that out. What's really important here is, as an end user, if I see an outlier, for example, right here on my OPEX, right, I see this outlier, something happened this month, I can click on this and I can start drilling into the data, right? I'm not just statically looking at the visualizations. I can start from the top, visualize my outliers, and then jump into the data and investigate what's going on. So it's taking me to an OPEX report because we were looking at OPEX data, right? Just some highlight here. This blue bar for OnPlan is your forecast, your future, your budget. To the left of this is your actuals, right? And I can see that on an average month, we're spending about 170, 200,000 expenses. But this yellow cell, which is the point I clicked on from the chart, it is 1.4 million, right? So that is an outlier that we have here, a little bit higher than usual, right? I threw some conditional formatting as well. So right here, I can see this is the culprit. Someone's planning $1 million into meals and entertainment, probably a mistake, right? But good thing this is on the forecast. It's not something we have on the actual side. And then to get even more detail and figure exactly what's going on here, I can actually add a comment, tag the person who forecasted this. They're going to get a notification from the software and they're going to come into OnPlan. They're going to be able to communicate with me exactly what's going on. And the full conversation is going to be right next to the data. I don't have to share any files. I don't have to get on Slack or Google or have an email going back and forth. We can get to the issue, understand exactly what's happening right here, right now. Just a little bit more on the dashboards as well, right? So like I said earlier, it is collaborative, so we can have different dashboards as well. Right now I have a global KPI one, but we have one for sales, one for expenses, different departments. The whole idea is we'll have these different dashboards, different reports, different templates, and then we throw data permission on top of it so that as an end user, once you get in, you're only going to see the data, the dashboards you're supposed to. As an admin, you're going to be comfortable that you're not going to have any issues with data leakage, data security. But as an end user, you essentially get a personalized experience as well, right? So moving on from the dashboards, let's get into what I think the more interesting part, like the forecasting side of things, right? So I'm going to start here with a very basic example first. It's an OPEX planning template. We're doing some zero-based account level forecasting. After this, we're getting to something. We're getting to the apps where it's a bit more data-driven, a lot more interesting. I just want to showcase in terms of how the software works right now. So right off the bat, the first thing on the OnPlan is we have the streamlined UX. As an end user, you log in, you're going to know exactly where you need to go, right? Your dashboards, your inputs, your templates, your functional areas, everything is organized neatly for you. Vice versa, right? We're trying to move away from spreadsheets, right? If you give a head of sales, head of marketing, something like this is going to be difficult for them to locate what they need, right? So as end user, it is streamlined. At the same time, as they're working on a template, right? You're going to have access that you're not just going to see in a spreadsheet as well. So as an end user, I'm looking at this data. I have my forecast. It's highlighted in blue. So I know this is my inputs. This is my future. This is my forecast. To the left of this is my actuals. And on the fly, as an end user, you don't have to ask the finance person. As an end user, if I want to see some additional data, with a switch right here, I can add in some additional data from prior years. If I want to look at this data aggregated by different time perspectives, like quarter, like annual, let's say I want a quarterly report, right? With a single click, I can do this on the fly. And now I have a quarterly report with my annuals as well. right? And then you can also show growth rates, things like that as well. So it gives the end user absolute control what they want to see, how they want to plan. Now, on the planning portion, right? Very simple example right here. Like I said, it's just some zero-based inputs. So if I want to make some changes, let's say office expense for this month is 5,600, right? Like any spreadsheets, we're inputting that value. What is key for OnPlan though, and what is a differentiating factor that we have, a lot of players don't, is we talk to Google Sheets directly and we sit on top of it. So if this 5,600 that I have here, when I made this change, it is automatically updated on Google Sheets as well. At the same time, let's say you want to make a change in Google Sheets, right? That's 7,200 that we have here, 7,200 for August in office expenses. That same change that we just made in Google Sheets will now be available in OnPlan as well. It is a bi-directional sync. What this means is certain user profiles, head of sales, head of marketing, we keep them on the OnPlan UX stream, right? Simpler, it's streamlined for them. Your finance folks, your accounting folks, you're never going to be able to take Google Sheets and Excel out of their hands, right? So for those users, they can continue to work with the tools they love today, but they also have OnPlan for scenario management, reporting, etc., other capabilities that you're just not going to have on a spreadsheet. But as an end user, we're not forcing you out of the spreadsheets, right? I've been in this industry for a long time, and I've often seen two different approaches. Certain vendors, right, they're all about let's replace Google Sheets, let's replace Excel, right? And then you're going to have the other one where we're fully on Excel, we're fully on Google Sheets. What we found in OnPlan is you're always going to have different user profiles. Let's try not to force them into individual boxes. We want to give different access, different user experiences for different user profiles, right? And one thing I didn't mention, it is a direct connection to Google Sheets, right? So any changes we make on both sides are immediately reflected in real time. But we can take the data, we can take the model to Excel as well. So if you're coming from an office shop, you can take your model in offline to Excel, make your changes and upload it back into OnPlan as well. The final thing I want to mention here, and to me is a critical part of the OnPlan DNA and a critical differentiator for us, is because we have this live connection to Google Sheets, we're actually just piggybacking off Google Sheets for our calc engine. So at OnPlan, we actually take pride in the fact that we do not have an OnPlan calc. We don't have our own calculation script, right? So as an end user, the way that you build your models, your formulas, is the same way that you build them today, Google Sheets or Excel, right? So your VLOOKUPs, your index matches, right? Your standard formulas that you're using today, those are the same formulas you're going to be using in OnPlan. There's no learning curve in that sense. Sure, you have to learn a new product. Everyone wants to learn a new product. But the hardest part, the calculation script, the language, the modeling aspect, that is exactly the way you're doing today. We are just using standard spreadsheet language. We didn't even create our own. Right, and this is important for user adoption. It's and in terms of user just maintenance, right? So in my past, I've done a lot of projects, and what I found is it's always really good when the consultants are around. The consultants can do the formulas, the changes for you, but the issue is every time I see this, as the consultants leave, right, your finance folks, your accounting folks, they might not be able to figure out how to model, how to change the calculations in their solution. And what often happens is they'll take the data out of the tool, paste it in the Google Sheets into Excel, do the modeling outside, and paste the data back into their solution, right? And then essentially you have a really expensive data collection tool at that point. So for us at OnPlan, that is something we really want to avoid. We want you to be able to maintain your own models, your own calculations, at the same time, be able to leverage OnPlan at the same time. Right. So that's a little bit in terms of how OnPlan works, right? Let's get into something a bit more interesting, how we actually forecast bottoms up with some data, right? So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the apps that we have. But before we get into that, right, these apps that we have, they are data driven. It is 2023. We want to leverage all the different systems we have. And especially today in the modern office of finance, we have a lot of different systems, right? So for OnPlan, like I said earlier, we're meant to be that centralized platform, your source of truth, right? So we're going to get all your systems connected, right? And the first thing, we are an FP&A tool, right? So we do have to get your accounting systems connected, right? So your QuickBooks, your Xero, Sage, and Tax, etc. We're going to get that connected. CRM, right? We want to think about our revenue, right? We want to take advantage of our pipeline data, customer data coming from our CRM systems, so Salesforce, HubSpot, SaaS Optics, or NetSuite as well. We can get that connected. And then lastly, in here, we also have HR as well. For most businesses, right, one of the largest costs, if not the largest one, is the HR side, right? So we want to get that connected and leverage that information. These are the common ones we can connect to, but we can do custom integration to other systems as well, right? So we have some other ones as well, like customer assets or asset management, customer warehouse, project management systems. Typically, those data can be very useful, and we can get that connected as well. So once the systems are connected, OnPlan is your source of truth. We have those data in this one place. What do we do with that data, right? And the first thing we're going to do with onboarding clients is our rapidly deployment apps that we have. And what we have at OnPlan is we actually have the ability to, basically the first day or first few days that you sign up with us, we have this app store where we can take advantage of your data, your chart accounts, your dimensionalities, your employee list. We install the apps, it's going to read your metadata. So we're not using our sample data. We're using your chart account, your data, your employees, and then we can spin it up basically within minutes. Here's an example of what this looks like. We're going to start with HR just because I find HR is similar company to company, a little bit easier to understand. And essentially this app that I have right here, right? It is our HR app. It is a bottoms up HR forecasting. And what we have here is we're taking employee data from your HRIS system, right? Whether it's Bamboo, Gusto, etc. We're going to bring this data right in, your employees, their names, titles, departments, locations, start and date, compensation, as well as any other fields you want as well. This is the sample that I have in here. Because it is integrated, if someone leaves, if someone joins the company, right, this is going to automatically update. At the same time, outside of this data, we also give you the ability to enrich this data right here as well. So as the end user, right, the finance person, they're going to be able to enrich this data. They can tag my employees. Are they OPEX? Are they COGS? If they're building a bigger project, we could potentially capitalize the expense as well, right? And these are insights that we're going to enrich the data with, so we can start looking at different unit economics, different allocations, etc. This is a simple example here, but we can also do percentage allocations as well by programs or by departments as well, right? So we're going to have this data brought in. Some of it we're going to be enriched on the employee level, but we're talking about employees here, so we have to think about taxes, benefits as well. This is a simple table, right? So your FICA, SULA, your benefits, right? We're going to maintain all this in one centralized location, and this can get more complicated if you want to look at, for example, SULA by state as well, right? So we can have this more sophisticated. In fact, the standard app actually does come with SULA for every state built in, right? So all this is all managed in one centralized location, and then they can be applied to all the employees that we have. So now what do we have? We have the data from your HRIS imported in. We have it enriched, some of it on employee level, some of it on a global perspective. And what we have here is now we can have the apps do the heavy lifting for us. We don't have to build it from scratch. These calculations are going to be immediately available for you from day one, right? And we can start looking at the FTE forecast immediately. We can start looking at the salary forecast immediately. We can start looking at taxes and benefits as well, right? As you can see, everything is forecasted on the employee side. And because this is the future, this is the forecast, we can import in your actual salary information by employee as well from your payroll, your ERP, your accounting system, right? And what that means is at the end of the month, end of the quarter, if you see a discrepancy on your BVA on the salary line, I can come to this report, run a BVA on the employee level, compare my forecast by employee, right? What is my forecast? What is my actual payout? And immediately I'm going to see where my deltas are coming from, right? Who are the deltas I have? Maybe it's a mistake I made on the forecast side. Maybe someone started a little bit too early, a little bit too late. You're going to be able to get those insights. You're going to be able to drill into this data immediately so you can understand where your BVA is coming from. In terms of the apps as well, right? So these apps are rapidly deployed from day one. And what that means is it's not meant to do everything. We've taken our best practices from our past, we've built them into the app so you can get immediate value, that TTV for you immediately. But we know that every customer is a little bit different. The whole idea is we're going to rapidly deploy these so that you can start using them from day one. And as you understand the system better, we're going to work with you. We're going to have workshops where we then tailor these solutions to you based on your nuances, your requirements. But at the same time, we don't have to go through a long 2, 3, 4 week discovery period, and then we start building. We're going to get you in the software immediately. Right. So this is an example of the expense side on the HR side. I'm going to switch gears a little bit to talk about a SaaS revenue example. Right. So I know everyone here is not on the SaaS side, but it is a B2B example. So a lot of the thoughts, a lot of the best practices are still applicable. And after this, we'll get into some of the scenario management pieces of functionalities that we have at OnPlan. So right here, we're talking about SaaS planning. Typically, SaaS, in our opinion, our best practice is there's 3 segments. There's our existing customers, our pipeline, and there's some sort of top-down logo forecasting, right? In this example, I'm just going to focus on the pipeline portion. It is a bottoms-up example, right? So very similar in terms of the concept, in terms of design as what you saw on the HR side. And this is a common thing that we have across our implementation, across our apps as well. The first thing is we get the data brought in. Right, we get the data brought in. In this case, we have a connection to Salesforce. We're going to bring this from Salesforce or HubSpot, or your CRM of choice. We're going to have the customer data, or the prospect data, the products we're selling, the regions, the contract information, the setup fees, the numbers that we have here. We're also going to bring the stage into OnPlan as well. And what this stage allows us to do is we can start thinking about conversion through some global drivers, right? So for example, right here with my pipeline, I have some probability conversion, and this is based off historicals as well. What is the probability of converting between different stages, whether they're inbound versus outbound? Everyone here, I'm sure, knows there's a big difference. We can apply these percentages to the pipeline that we have, so we can think about what the weighted average, what is the probability conversion, what is the weighted average towards our bookings, our revenue, our ARR, etc. Right? That's one example. Some customers of us, they just want to bring the probability, just that number from their CRM. We can do that as well, right? So the apps gives you that option. You can configure it as well. Beyond that, we also have the billing frequency. This is actually very important when we start thinking beyond just the P&L forecast. We want to think about balance sheet cash flow forecasting as well. And you're going to see that's very important a little bit as well with the payment terms. But beyond that, there's always additional drivers that we can add as well, right? The implementation period, what do we think what the onboarding looks like? And that's important for certain customers where they want to delay that revenue recognition on the subscription portion until the PS portion is done. And we can control that as well. And then you can also use some other drivers like potential churn in the future as well, or upsell for other percentages as well. We can do all that drivers, controls, enrichment in here as well. Right, so similar idea on the HR side. We're going to bring some data in, and then we're going to enrich this data. Some of it from a bottoms-up perspective, some of it from a top-down global scale. And again, same thing. What do we do here? Now we have the data. Some of it brought in, some of it enriched. The apps will do the heavy lifting for you. Right, so in here, I have a calculated output. Right, we are going from a bottoms-up perspective. Right, so we have the employee, we have the visibility. Was it that customer data, that visibility, what does it look like per prospect, per customer, right? Based on these drivers we have, we can think about each individual different revenue lines. This is the subscription portion. What does that look like? This is the PS portion, right? If you have other segmentations, other product lines, we're going to build that into here as well, right? Now we have the revenue. What does it look like on the balance sheet and cash flow side? And remember earlier, we had the billing frequency. We have the payment terms, right? And with the billing frequency, we can start thinking about deferred revenue, right? If they're billed annually, we're going to burn down on 12 months basis. If they're billing quarterly, right, we're going to burn them for 3 months. But if they are monthly, we're not going to have any deferred revenue, right? We're going to start thinking about balance sheet. And now with this, we're going to think about invoicing, right? Accounts receivable by customers. And with that payment terms tied in, we can actually look at a direct cash flow by customer, right? And what we found is for a lot of our customers, this is extremely useful, especially for a lot of startups, for not-for-profits, where you have to be extremely transparent with your cash runway, right? And sometimes you're going to get CEOs that might not be a finance person's background. They could be a salesperson, it could be a product person, where sometimes the indirect cash flow is just not going to click with them. But I think anyone here, if they see something like this, how much are we getting from our customers? Who are we getting it from? And when are we getting the cash from them? They're going to immediately be able to understand and visualize what the cash flow looks like on that side as well, right? So for today, I'm going to stop here on the apps and the examples that we have. We have a ton of other ones as well, right? SaaS top-down, professional services, some non-for-profit fund management, unrestricted and unrestricted cash, your OPEX, your HR, your CAPEX, your debt, your consolidations. We have other apps as well, right? The whole thing is to get you rapidly deployed so you can use OnPlan immediately from day one. And then afterwards, we tailor the solution for you. But all these apps that we have, right? What are they for? They are for our forecast, our budget, and how do we manage our scenarios, right? So everything that we have in terms of scenarios, our forecast, is all through what we call our scenario manager, right? OnPlan ties the whole thing together. In this example, I have 3 different forecasts: high, base, low, and then a budget. That is typical for an average customer that we have. You're looking around 2 to 5 scenarios, right? A few forecasts, a few different budgets, annual budgets. You can have as many as you want. We actually have a customer in South America and Africa. They do micro loans. So for them, they actually have to think about what is the capital requirements as they move into different regions, different countries, and they'll actually have a scenario for each one of those bases, right? The difference for us between a forecast and a budget, as you can see, the forecast is a rolling forecast. We're going to have monthly snapshots what your forecast looks like. The software actually take automatic copies of that. You can create your own snapshots as well. A snapshot is just a frozen time copy of that forecast, that plan. But a budget is not going to have that because that's something you do once a year and that's locked down. You cannot change that. The forecasts are going to have different rolling forecasts, different variations as you go through your rolling forecast, different copies for each month. So where do we help you with your scenario management? And in my opinion, it's really 2 pieces. One, everything's sitting on the OnPlan platform, right? You're going to have all your data in one place. If you were doing this in Google Sheets or Excel, you can hit save as and you have brand new scenarios each month. But the pain of copying and pasting data between different scenarios, making sure they're up to date, making sure they have the latest financial data, especially if you have different what if scenarios, a high case, a best case, a worst case, you have to copy data between different models, different scenarios. Some users use VBA. That is very hard to maintain. And that's a lot of time that's, I wouldn't say necessary value add work, right? So with OnPlan, you can be confident it's sitting on one platform. You're always going to be up to date. They're always going to have the latest information, the correct information, your source of truth. The second piece of planning where I think it's super useful here, and I think this is the one, I've only seen this in OnPlan as well. I've worked with other vendors as well. This is one of the first ones I've seen only OnPlan, is if you think about your rolling forecast, what do you start off with? You're typically starting off with the standard assumptions that are the same across your scenarios, right? Your boring, mundane things like office expense, insurance, you're probably not making wildly different assumptions. So those are the ones I think you typically start off with. And instead of going to your scenario one by one, when we do our forecast, we actually have this toggle right here. Once this is turned on, I can now make batch updates across multiple scenarios. So for example, insurance expense, probably not the most exciting thing, probably going to be the same across my multiple scenarios. Let's say this is 8850, right? And this change is applied because this switch is turned on. It is going to be applied across the board, across all my scenarios. And once I'm done with my standardized assumptions, I can then focus on my nuances, right? So let's just say this is this expense, insurance expense for August is important for some reason for my base scenario. And it is going to be different. It's going to be 25, 90, right? And the important thing here is one was a batch update, one was a unique assumption. So now if I flip to my high case, another scenario, we're going to see that 8850, but we're not going to see that 2950. That was unique to my base case, right? And now I can make changes, right? Let's say this is 3500, right? We make it a lot easier to think about your what if scenarios. So you can have more of them. You can think about where the strategies, where the direction the company is going towards. Now that you have 2 scenarios, multiple scenarios, right? They're going to be updated with the latest information. You made your batch updates. You made your individual assumptions. Now you're sitting at the management table, right? You have to compare the differences between your scenarios, right? So from here, on the fly, any user, any report, any template is going to have this functionality. I want to compare my scenarios. I want to compare my base versus my high scenario, right? And all you have to do is select your scenario. So my base case, my high case, right? So on the fly with a few clicks, the software is now going to start stitching that data together for you as an end user. I can immediately be able to compare this. We are comparing forecasts, so I don't really care about my actuals. They're going to be the same, right? So right off the bat, I have my base case, I have my high case. And as you can see, that 8850 was applied across the board, which is why we do not have a delta. But then we have 2590 for my base case, 3500 for my high case, and I can see my delta, right? I can look at it by value, I can look at percentage, but as an end user, I have this control and be able to run this by myself, right? This is one example. We're just looking at some OpEx. We could do this across other apps, other examples as well. For example, staffing, right? We talked about staffing as well. But for a lot of our customers, especially if it's a very centralized planning process, and that happens, right, where you have your CEO and your CFO sitting in the room and doing this together. So I'm looking at different scenarios, right? I'm looking at my headcount, and headcount or personnel is one of the largest costs, especially for a lot of tech companies. It is the largest cost, right? So as I go through my forecast, it's the same process, right? For example, Jeremy Jones, that person, universally we agree, they did a great job. We should give them a raise. So instead of going to each scenario one by one to make the update, I'll just turn the switch on. I'm going to make him 105,000, right? But now the CEO is getting a little bit greedy, and he wants to play around the numbers. What happens if I give myself, CEO, a huge bump, right? And at the same time, you have to take care of the company, so you have to think about cash flow, right? So I'm just going to look at this one scenario. I want to see what my cash runway looks like. So on the fly, I can actually chart this out. And this data can be anywhere in your ecosystem. Right here, we're talking about cash runway, right? So we're not looking at the individual HR information. This is the end of the line recalculation, right? We're going from HR, your expenses, right, which is on P&L side, which then affects the balance sheet and ultimately in cash flow, right? And now on the fly, as the end user, the CEO, let's just say I give myself a few extra zeros. What does that look like, right? What does this peak scenario look like? And as you can see, my cash runway immediately runs out, right? So the whole idea is, as an end user on OnPlan, we want you to be asking these questions. We want you to be able to get the answers immediately, right? So as an end user, the CEO is like, I can't give myself that kind of raise. The company is going to be dead tomorrow, right? So those are some of the examples and the value add props that we have for OnPlan in terms of scenario management. I'm going to move on to just some reporting examples as well before we dig into what I feel is an exciting part, which is the backend stuff, right? So just quickly highlight for our clients, our onboarding process, we're going to give you all three statements, right? Your income statement, balance sheet, cash flow. They can be structured however you want, whether it's a accounting structure, a management reporting structure, you have control over that, right? And like we said earlier, this blue bar, that's your forecast, right? So individually, most of these lines will have their own schedule, their own apps, helping you calculate, input, model out what does your forecast looks like. To the left of this would be your actuals, right? Coming in from QuickBooks, Xero, Sage, NetSuite, etc. Right? We're gonna give you your three models, helping you forecast your P&L, your balance sheet, and cash flow, right? And what is the whole point of OnPlan? What is the whole point of us building these forecasts? Well, it is for us to compare our BVA so we can see how we're doing according to our plan, right? And in fact, for that, it's actually the exact same tool I've been showing you guys along. You can have these pre-built as well. In my OpEx example, I built one on the fly just to show you how simple it is to create them. But right here, we can have these pre-created, right? So I can see this is my actuals and this is my forecast. I'm looking at the Q2 basis. I'm looking at the monthly here, right here. And now I can run my BVA, right? So this is available on all your reports. And what we found that's been really useful for our clients now for the first time, this is so simple to create. They can now have individual P&Ls for different projects, different departments, right? So that the department heads can be held responsible. And myself at OnPlan, right? We use OnPlan for our own forecasting, budgeting. For my department, my solution department, I essentially get three things. I get an HR template we had earlier. I get an OpEx template in terms of my non-personnel expenses. And then I have my own P&L, right? I can run the BAVA myself. I run this on a monthly basis. So do all our heads of departments like sales, marketing. They all run this each month. We sit down with our CFO and we kind of go through this. And then we're going to be able to explain and look at the deltas and explain what happened on a monthly basis so that we can be held accountable, right? So those are some of the high-level demonstrations in terms of the OnPlan product, the apps, reporting. But I do also want to show you guys what does the backend look like as well, so that everyone's a little bit interested. If we want to build something ourselves, what does that look like, right? So the OnPlan ecosystem is made up of 3 different things. So far, we looked at the OnPlan UX, the OnPlan online platform. We looked at Google Sheets. And the third thing that's really carrying the whole thing is our big data database, right? So I think this is unique to us. This is the only time I've ever seen this in this space. And it's to me, it's pretty cool. It's we're leveraging big data technology. We're using BigQuery from Google, right? Handle terabytes, petabytes, probably even more these days, right? So we're never going to have performance issues. We figure out how to create a wrapper around that. And because we have the ability to maintain tons of data, tons of dimensionality, we don't have to think about different cubes, different databases. We have one database that's supporting everything. Any data that you pull from your accounting, your data warehouse, your CRM, everything's going to be sitting here. I don't have to manage different databases. I don't have to manage the different data flows. At the same time, we have no limit on the number of dimensionalities. There are a lot of vendors, because they have restriction on performance, on data speed, performance like that. There's usually a hard cap in terms of 8, 10, 12 dimensions. And what's really critical for a lot of solutions is you have to get that dimension correct on day one, because the software does not allow you to add more dimensions in the future. So the accountant needs to get that right the first time they're going through the discovery. But as we know, businesses change, right? CFOs change, right? And that dimensionality might change, right? That means you have to re-implement later down the road. And what a lot of consultants do in those cases, they'll add placeholders, hoping 1 or 2 will be enough. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not, right? But even from a user experience, you're just going to have this blank placeholder dimension that doesn't do anything, which is also not a pleasant experience, right? But for OnPlan, that is not an issue, right? We scale as much as you want, right? So we can actually add dimensionality in flight, which allows us to be a lot more agile, right? This is how we can deploy the apps from day one. So even if we don't fully understand your business, we can still get you started on your planning. And as we introduce and understand that, let's say you have a product dimension, a location dimension, a customer dimension, we can add that in flight. Beyond that, we're going to also have hierarchies as well, right? So we're going to roll up the data for you. For example, here's my revenue or my chart account, right? My revenue side, right? We have the hierarchies. We're going to help you roll up the data. This isn't based off your accounting system, right? The actual roll up doesn't have to mirror exactly, right? The whole system is meant to work for you. The leaves, the bottom level accounts that we have here should be the same, but you can roll up however you want. What we typically see is we'll take the chart account that we have from your system, your accounting system, and if you need to add in additional layers in the middle to make it easier for you to report, forecast, we can definitely do that. So how do we move from the database and get that data onto our templates in terms of the software, in terms of reporting templates? How do we do that, right? So the way that we do that, here is a sample report. I don't have anything. The whole idea is we just map the database. What data do I want to see, right? So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to tell the system, I want to see some revenue data, right? I want to see my EBIT. I want to see my balance sheet data. I want to see some statistical data. I'm going to build a template model, right? All you have to do is map this to the solution, retrieve, and the data is going to be populated. And from there, you can just use your standard spreadsheet language to build your calculations, right? I can directly build the calculations here, or I can build the calculation in Google Sheets, something that you're familiar with as well, right? So the whole idea is that's how we build a report. That's how we build a template. We tell the solution, what do we want to see? What are some of the drivers? And from here, I can start creating my calculations the same way that I do it today, right? And if you step back and think about what that looks like coming from a spreadsheet world, my guess is if you're coming from Google Sheets or Excel, you probably have 1 or 2 or 3 sheets where you just have a ton of data, and then you're moving that data around with VLOOKUPs, index matches, things like that. That is something that is no longer going to be an issue with OnPlan. Yes, we're using standard spreadsheet language to, in my opinion, is the best way to model, but you don't have to move your data around anymore. A lot of the excessive formats you're using as a workaround to move data around, you don't have to do that with OnPlan. You just tell the system what data I want to see, right? It's going to be much more secure. It's much easier to maintain. One little bit, final thing before I wrap it up as well, in terms of how we make it easier for you to maintain your models in the long run as well. There are intelligence built into our templates. I'm going to use a very basic example right here of just unit times price, right? This is some inputs in terms of units times price to give my revenue. As your business grow, you have new location, new accounts. It is a huge pain going through your model, inserting lines, breaking formulas, adding different locations, adding new different accounts. For us, this is all managed through our database as well. So not only is it used for data storage, it is used for master data management as well. For example, right here, I have a product dimension. I currently have product ABC, but let's say a few months has gone by. We have some brand new products, right? So for that case, all I have to do is just add in my brand new products here, right? So product D, product E. Once I add this to the solution, the templates, the models that we have, they're going to automatically change and readjust themselves. So you're going to insert lines almost magically, so you don't have to do this. It's going to understand and recognize what it was the setup before. Was it an input? Was it a numerical input? Was it an input and a dollar figure? What was the formula? The software will actually change the references for you so that you have correct math for new products as well. So for example, now we have brand new products. I can put in 500 for my units. I can put $2,000. It remembers the whole setup. And it's also going to remember the formula for me as well. It's going to recognize the formula, but it will also change the references as well so that it's applied for a new product, right? So this is applicable anywhere across your modeling. If you have HR, right, new employees, they're going to be automatically inserted. CapEx, new assets inserted, right? New natural accounts, if you want to do a report, right? You have a new natural account they're adding sometimes in your accounting system, right? It will recognize that. It will update reports, bring in the latest account for you so you're not missing anything, right? Hopefully this was not too detailed. Hopefully this is exciting. Hopefully for everyone, it's a little bit useful to understand how does the backend work as well in terms of how do we build something OnPlan beyond just the apps, the reports, the dashboards, the scenarios as well. And I hope everyone enjoyed that. That's my presentation of the product.
All right. Thank you very much, Charlie, for adding your insights along with showing us all the amazing functionality. Just a few things that kind of stuck out to me. I love the visualizations where you can drive into the numbers. So I say that's bring it to life, right? Bring your data to life, answer your own questions. I think the other thing that comes out is the visibility that drives accountability and the dimensions side of it. So we used to talk a lot about rolling forecasts and driver-based planning, but nobody was really doing it right a couple of years ago. Now you've turned this on and you've kept people right in the experience that they like to adopt. And then the linking the scenarios was incredibly interesting as well. And then the horsepower behind the database management, scales kind of in that unlimited manner. So that was a question, just my observations of things that as my practitioner hat was on that were particularly impressive. Can you share with us, this might be one of only a couple questions, but we'll absolutely get your questions answered if we don't get to these with Charlie. When customers adopt the solution, what are areas that they find more value than expected? So they may have been expecting, hey, this is going to help us. Is it collaboration? Is it accountability? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's across the board. So for us, one of the first things that we find with customers is they're surprised that they can start using the system from day one, right? So for us, especially a lot of systems we can already pre-connect to, right? Oftentimes for us on the kickoff call, we're actually going to connect to your accounting system. In that call, we're going to actually get you to log in. You just basically click it. It's an OAuth login, right? From there, we might actually have the apps already deployed, and you essentially hit retrieve, and you can actually build a basic forecast from that day one, right? So in terms of speed of onboarding, you're going to get value immediately. And with that, you're going to have the database manager. You're going to start building your own reports from day one, right? And what we actually have a lot of customers, they might not have certain best practices built out already, right? So they come to us, they might not have a great model. In my opinion, if you have a great model, it's kind of working, you might not really be shopping, right? You might be a brand new CFO, you might be a fractional CFO, or you just want a better best practice, right? Because we have the apps in place as well, to rapidly deploy, so you can actually start leveraging some best practice immediately to help you get better forecasting. A lot of our customers don't have great cash flow forecasting, right? Once you join us, we're going to give you a cash flow forecasting module. Now you can start understanding your cash runway a little bit better, right? Beyond that, one of my favorite things is actually the scenario manager. Yes, we have the dashboard. Yes, we have all that stuff, but it's the scenario manager, especially the last couple of years, right? COVID, right? The investing landscape has changed, right? We have to think about what does our runway look like? If we hit certain sales targets, what does that look like, right? And because the scenario management is so easy for us, you can create a scenario on the fly. You can start changing your inputs. And for us, it's not a subcategory of inputs that you can adjust between scenarios. It's all of them, right? So you can start thinking about a scenario immediately and be able to look at your deltas, right? Your board-approved plans, your what-if scenarios on the fly, right?
Okay, let me wrap things up here with a question. Another thing that really stuck out to me was that you mentioned workshops, and you kind of touched a little bit on customer success. Can you dig into that just a little bit more about how you support your clients and the workshops and how you support their professional success in growing into leveraging your product and getting the ROI that they can get out of it?
Yep. So we take a little bit different approach. So for us, it's not a legacy PS model where we come in with consultants and just ask you questions for 3 weeks without touching the product, right? We're going to get you connected from day one. We're going to get you the apps. Our goal is by the end of the first week, you can actually build a basic forecast. Might not have all the gears for your revenue. Everyone's revenue is a little bit different, but you can do your HR, you can do your office, you can input your top line revenue and get your forecast built out immediately. After that, we call what we call as gap solution workshops. Essentially, we take a look at the apps that we have today. And we take a look at what you need. And then we figure out what that gap is. And then we're going to tailor the solution for you, right? So that's the PS portion. We're going to tailor the solution based on your needs. You start with standard apps out of the box, and then we tailor it to fit all your needs, right? So that's kind of how our onboarding process looks like. So it should be much faster, right? We're really trying not to make money on the PS side. We're really trying to be a linear software company. After that, we have the customer service portion as well, right? It's a great team. Most of them are ex-consultants, right? So they're not just relaying your questions. A lot of times on the call, they're going to be able to troubleshoot with you and fix and change the issues on the fly. And you're going to have access to that. And we'll usually get you an answer within a day or within a day, really, to help you fix that as well.
Great. Thank you very much. Charlie, again, if we didn't get to your question, we will certainly follow up with you. If you'd like to connect with OnPlan, learn more, have the contact information there. I have to say, I love the dog. I have the same kind of dog, so it was really cool for me to see that. So we are honored to have OnPlan as a partner with us on the event. So thank you so much, Charlie, for taking the time to share your amazing solution with us. And I hope everyone is enjoying the conference. Make the rest of your day great, everyone. Thank you.